everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of the Lycan DM's Workshop. I am DM Michael. How is everybody doing today? I hope everyone is doing well. Now, today we are going to jump right into more of these Cavern tiles. Now, last week we made some flat ones, some straight ones that are a little wavy. Well, what we're going to work into today is some more advanced ones. So we have, we have curved, the nice corners. I have a few different types of corners. The main two are short on one side and long on the other, and then just sort of equidistant on both. We have some small corners that are a little bit shorter. Now, I've had archways for a while now, something to designate when you're going from a large cavern into more of a walkway or a smaller cave tunnel. So I always made these. Like, they're just interesting shapes, but I always found that they fell over or they weren't adequate. They weren't adequate for what I did. So I made some new ones, some prototypes, and I think it's worked out really well. Same thing for the larger arches and archways. We also have the rounds. We're going to work on those. We got both large rounds and short rounds. We have a plethora of centerpieces. Now, when I say centerpieces, I mean center walls. And then we have things like these, which are flats. Flats work as either as a ramp or as a second level between two walls. Something where, some bad guys can shoot down with arrows or something. But just to give that second level effect, we have some of those. I have some corners, I have some ramps, and let's go ahead and jump onto the table and let's get some hot glue gun action going. Let's go heat those up. So yeah, here we go. I moved my studio around a little bit, so you see the background's a little different. I'm adjusting a little differently, so that way you can see me on my dominant hand, so you don't have to see the back of my hand all the time. So we'll see how that works. All right, let's go ahead and jump to the tabletop. All right, so let's get some music going, shall we? All right, so first things first. So my little owl bear, he is a large creature, about 2-inch base and almost 3 inches in height. So he is going to be my standard for how tall I'm going to make my archways and things like that. So basically the idea is he is, with the base and the height of the walls, things like this can easily go over the top of him, and we can move the large pieces through. Large pieces should be able to fit into a cavern. Now, a few other things we got going on here. So we're going to set him to the side. Hot glue guns heated up. One thing about rearranging my area is really coming down to figuring out where everything should be. Here we go. So I've made myself some lists. We've started with these guys, which were our straights. And now we're going to go into our angles. So I made a few designs. These ones are a little shorter than these, but there's a reason for that. I have these nice corners that are pretty big, but I want to make some small ones that are just corners and that aren't as large. So it tends to be that when I'm setting up a scene, the corner, if it's nice, but if I want these walls pretty close to each other, it looks awkward, and I don't exactly have something there, and I have to make sure everything's spaced out perfectly. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of rectify that a little bit. And we are going to add in some small corners. Now, I don't recommend people touching the tips of their glue guns. That is a me thing. I have asbestos fingers for working in the kitchen for many, many years. That low amounts of heat don't really bother me. I have sustained many burn injuries over my life. So please, don't try this at home. I'm just in a hurry. Alright, so we got that one set up. It's just a nice little corner. We're going to move on. I have some that are going to be short on one side and longer on the other. Now, if I... Oh. There we go. Make sure I have the right pieces for the right ones. And like I said, I'm going to mold this into an interesting shape so we can see this a little bit better. So I have a couple options here. I can, one, just freehand it, or I can trace this out. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to trace this out a little bit. And I'm always trying to aim for having the edge pieces be in the center. Apologize if I'm a little hoarse today. I'm getting a little sick. I'm not too happy about that. And such is life. I'm going to hold that in position for just a little bit, making sure those edges and end pieces are where I want them to be. You can always trim if necessary. Let's see this all. Just holding it in place. See, isn't this a much better angle for watching what I'm doing? Also show you from a different angle. There's a close-up of my Shermander. But anyway, let's go with one of these smaller angles. Something like that. That's pretty nice. I like that. I like that a lot. So let's go ahead and get that glued down. Now this is another way of doing it, where you glue onto the paper first, or onto the top piece of cardboard. And this one's going to have a nice texture to it. Now, there are I wouldn't say they're rules, but some guidelines that are breakable. One, for structure purposes, it's a lot better to have your corrugation running up rather than this way. However, sometimes I will break that rule, as I did with this one, to get an interesting texture, which is a little harder to do when it's running the other way. But this is going to get covered in hot glue. This is going to be pretty secure. We're not going to have to worry about it too much. Alright, let's do another one of those. I'm trying to think of how I want to do this one. So with a little more of a sharp angle. So yeah, we'll do it just like that. We'll do this one as more of a sharp corner on one side and more of a wider angle on the other. Put that hot glue on the bottom there. And we're going to touch those to the center. As you see, it's wider on, there's more space back here. And that's going to be okay, because that's going to give us a nice little bump on the inside. This is almost turning into more of a round than it is a corner, but that's okay. Here's another one of our big ones. That one's not the right size for that. This one's. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and get that set up. I'm going to crush that just a little bit. Just to give it some texture. Hey there, Seth. How's it going? Thank you. Appreciate that. I like him too. He's pretty neat. I got some, I dry brushed him with a little silver. Or no, copper. Yeah, it was copper. To give him sort of a little metallic sheen on just the edges of his feathers. Alright, we'll go with another one of the small ones. Now this one is going to be a little different. Crush this guy up a little bit. Give him good. Yeah, that's a very interesting shape. Where to go with that? All about making it interesting and somewhat unique. So I have a larger one that kind of fits the same scheme as this little piece right here, but that little alcove is just a neat little thing. There we go. Get that focus in a little bit better. So there we have this cool little alcove. This one, I want to make, let's see, let's bend this there, like that. Yeah, I like that. I like that one a lot. And just hold it for a few seconds. There we go. Nice, interesting shape. And let's do two more. Do another small one, and one more medium-sized one. I'll make this a little different, though. There we go. I like that. I like a little bulging towards the center a little bit. That's a little bit more unique. We can go with that one. And all I'm doing here is just hot gluing across the bottom of the corrugation. Now for the last one. So I'm on to glue stick number 3, by the way, since we're keeping track. How do I want this one to go? Maybe similar to that one, where it curls to the inside. Basically, I have 2 alcoves. Yeah, sure. Go with that. All right, so there we have it. We're gonna put these off to. So before we move into anything else, we're gonna coat these in hot glue. One more step. Cutting the bases. For this, it's just a matter of just a few nips here and there. You really just have to do it mostly on the ends. Just give it an interesting shape. And save all these little pieces. All these little pieces can become parts of stalagmites. And other different little things. does not wind up dry in the corner. I'll hold it there for just a moment. And re-glue this one. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes the pressure of the bent cardboard is more than the hot glue can handle for the moment. Alright, now we're going to start with the big one. Go on to the big one. And start letting the glue drip down. When they said this one was high heat, they were not kidding. It's very high heat. Alright, glue stick number 4. Kind of like the way that the bubbles are going on there. I don't know if that dry like that over there. It gives it some interesting effect. So, my estimate is correct. I'm going to go through about 2 of these large glue sticks per one of these. Maybe 3. But what we'll do is we'll go in and we'll get a good base coat, if you will, with the big glue gun. we're going to let that one dry. And now, we're just going to do the one of those right now. The rest of these, we're going to put off to the side. Probably going to do one small one. I'll do this nice, interesting looking one. I want it to get mostly on the top and then run down like the drizzle of a cake. That's what I'm going for here, is a drizzle of a cake. These are looking right now. Alright, so I think I'm going to let those sit for just a minute before we let that glue dry before we move on to the lower layers. Alright, so back up here. So as I stated before, these were the original archways. They were, well, as you can see, that's a small one, that's a large one. It's 2 inches wide. This one has a 1 inch space in the middle, so that's, you know, a tight one and a normal size one. But my owlbear does not really fit there very well. So that's where I sort of went, you know, although this is supposed to be big enough for a large creature, it's not working out very well. So, decided to revisit this, and I came up with a couple solutions. One, these guys, for as far as tight, thin tunnels go. And then for larger tunnels, one that has a little bit of a better height on it, which I like better. This one's a full 3 inches high. Whereas the next one is 2 inches high on the sides and then 3 inches in the middle. Now, both have their advantages and disadvantages. And yeah, if you look here, I also have some little stalagmites or stalactites hanging from the roof, which I thought was pretty cool. Now, for this one, to have it where I want it, it has to be 3 inches wide for the space. Enough so that there's a 1/2 inch on both sides for the slope down. Now, why do I need that 2-inch slope? For my 2-inch walls. Let's see. So, looking at this and other functions like these guys, these flats, would be able to lead up to this base, so a creature could walk across the top of this, make it as a second level, something like that. That's the idea behind it. But as I said, I have to make these 3 inches wide, which space might not always allow. So I have this one, which is 2 inches wide. Fits perfectly. I don't really have room for stalagmites, but it's 3 inches tall. Now, looking at this, like this, at first it doesn't seem cohesive to me, but using these planks, these flats, were I to, for instance, put this one off to here, off to the back, something like this, where he's coming down the corridor, I can still have ramps leading up to this higher point. Now, I've also made a little divot on the side here, so I can kind of rest this up against there a little further down. But yeah, so they both have their advantages and disadvantages. And I think I'm going to go with a combination of the two for now. So let me show you how I make these. The tight tunnels, these are for like kobolds and gnomes. These are for, you're squeezing in, trying to get away from the big owlbear reaching in with his claw trying to get at you. So I'm only going to make a few of those. For this, the bottom layer is made out of chipboard. I want it to be low to the ground and not have as much height as the cardboard. So, because these are smaller tunnels, I want them to be 2 inches high. So, I'm taking my cardboard sides that are 1 inch by 2 inches tall. I'm going to give them a little curve to them, bending along those corrugations. Now, the corrugation slots are going up in these, making that bend possible. So I'm just going to try to get an interesting piece going like that. So I'm going to take my piece of chipboard. I'm just going to glue around the outside. Just a little bit. Then I'm going to attach my wall piece. Now that that's dried a little bit, Gonna do the next side. Now, I will admit, making these smaller ones is a lot easier than making the bigger ones. The reason behind that is because there's less space that needs to be glued. It gets pretty simple. And then the next piece, I'm just going to glue on top. Plain and simple. And then I'm going to cut it onto the curve. And that's as simple as that. Now, I'm going to try to get a little bit of an arch in there. Just a little bit. It might not stay, but that's okay. This one is going to be a little different, where it's going to be a little wider at the top than it is at the bottom. And I'm doing that because it's fun. Now, once that's dried, we're going to go back through and we're going to trim. Now for these, we'll put this guy away. And I'm just going to be using my small glue. First things first, I'm going to get in and cover all of these inner joints. And as I do the inner joints, I'm going to do that top layer and that bottom layer. So now, yeah, you can do either or first, but I like doing the top layer because some of that glue might drip down just a little bit and give it an interesting, like, the starts of stalactites. Now I'm going to do the bottom. And the bottom, yeah, I'm just going to keep that one flat, but I'm going to have like more of an interesting texture. Try to get in there and see that texture a little bit. It's a little hard to tell when it's not painted, but that'll pop out once we get to the painting episode. So yeah, so once I have that, trim a little bit more piece off the top here. And now I'm going to do the outside. Oh, sorry. Well, this part down here. Getting these sides. This is why I use the small glue gun for this. You can really get in there. This is what, number 5? 6? It's 6. I've already lost count. Maybe the other side. Look back through, see if there's any spots we missed. Alright. And we're gonna go ahead and do the sides now. And once again, this project, it's only as expensive as the hot glue you use. You don't need expensive hot glue for this, especially since you're using so much. So I would suggest just getting the cheapest stuff you get. Like I said, this is going to be painted. It doesn't have to be the super clear kind. It doesn't have to be, already colored. Just get what you can get. That's cheap. Because either way, all that matters is that it's hot glue, and that's going to be the major portion of keeping it secure and protected. I'm just going to go across the top. Okay. Now I'm going to go in there with my point that's really hot. I'm just going to move it around. Just give it a little bit of a texture. Try to get it a little bit over the edges so it's somewhat smooth. And then I'm going to go around and hit up those edges. And then down the sides. And make sure my sides are all covered. Make sure all that corrugation is nice and concealed in hot glue. And then once that's done, we're going to do the final step of these, which is the base. So this, we want to keep the sides as close as possible, just as we do with the bigger pieces. The entrances, we want to keep a little bit of room so that way it looks like it's when it dries, it'll kind of dry flat. And we'll let that go as is. So here we go. Go back to, that's a little interesting piece we'll get to a little later. Go back to these guys for a minute. Now, the texture on this has dried pretty neat. There's some bubbles from the hot glue gun being really hot. What we're going to do is we're going to peel this off. And what we're going to do, we're going to go in here, we're going to pop some of these bubbles. Bubbles are not our friend. Alright. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fill in those bubbles with some hot glue. And this is going to make some interesting looking rock effects. Number 7, hot glue stick. You can really achieve some neat effects with the hot glue that I like very much for this project. Here, close these gaps in the corrugation. And like I said, when we get to the ends where they're going to meet other pieces, we're going to keep those as close to the piece as possible. Right now I'm just working on the base. 8. Alright, now we're going to work on this one. Just fill in these gaps over here. Fill in the corrugation along the edge. Fill in these little holes. That is about what can be done there. All right, we're going to let that sit for a minute. There we go. 2 pieces of finished corners. Now, back to the main cutting space. We're now on number 9, by the way. We're going to break some records today. Now, this piece is mostly dry. So we're going to let that sit for another second. And we're going to work on the large piece. Now, the large piece works very similar to that one. We have our chipboard base. This one is 3 inches, a little bit longer, but not that big. We have our 2 side walls, which are, these ones are about 2 3/4. They're just a piece that I had. They'll work just fine, especially being up on top of the chipboard. And then we have one piece, not this one, that goes across the top. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to round this. We're going to make this into an interesting shape. It's already kind of wavy, and I like that. And we're just going to put a little glue around the outside. Same thing on the other side again. All I'm doing here is doing what I did before and just bending the cardboard. Just trying to get a nice shape out of it. These ones are a little flatter. Hurry up and not let my glue dry. Perfect. So as you see, our owl bear is going to fit perfectly in here. Now, the top piece is going to look pretty square. This one's just a little shorter than I want it to be. I'm going to bend this a little bit like this, just to get a little bit of an arch. This one's going to be wider at the base than it is at the top. Because, you know, the bases of the monsters are usually wider than the monsters are at the top. So let's go with that. Now we're going to put a little bit around the tip over here. And it's okay if that runs down. That's fine. It's going to get utilized. And then we're going to put this across the top. And now, this isn't like the other one where we're going to trim it. We are going to keep this just the way it is. And we're going to let that sit momentarily, and we will get back to that. This guy's looking pretty fun. Not many holes, not many gaps. But we're going to go through, we're going to texture the sides. Look on the insides, see if there's any holes. Give them a little bit of a texture too. This will hide and fill in any gaps. So what I did was just give that a little texture. Oops. When you accidentally touch the hot glue of another project. Alright, now we're going to clean off the wisps. Little melty side that isn't really attached. We could trim them off. Could rip them off. I'm actually saving my larger scraps for larger scraps as far as hot glue goes. Especially the more round ones. I'm going to see if I can attempt to make mushrooms out of the excess. Alright, this guy looks like it's pretty much dry. So, what we're going to do here, pinch off this. Since that's stuck to my hand. Number 10. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to start at the top, get the corners. Now, the reason why we're using the low heat gun rather than the high heat gun is because the low heat gun already has the problem where it's going to heat back up that hot glue that you already poured in those joints. And that is bad, especially when you go to a hot temp gun, because then you have to deal with the joints coming undone. So we're just going to go over this, get a good layer on the top, turn it around, go to the sides, let that drip a little bit. Go on to number 11, hot glue stick number 11. I think I might just go till I'm done with glue sticks. Be done with glue sticks before the hour is up. Alright, we'll do the bottom. Get that texture in there. Ooh, that one's gonna be a nice stalactite. See that little drip right there? If I can angle it better. But it's there. Oh, there you go. There, you can see it. So that one's gonna be a good one. Try to keep this on an angle where it will dry in the correct position. Alright, now we're going to let that inside dry a little bit. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit of an advanced technique. Using these scraps that we had off to the side as stalagmites, or stalagmites, either or. So we're just going to trim off a little bit. Just so we get a nice little wedge shape. Go in, find a hole, preferably, that we're going to fill in with hot glue anyway. And then just stick that guy in there. Now, it's not going to look like much right now, but once that's covered in hot glue and stuck together, it's going to end up being like these guys. Now, once again, they're hard to tell because the hot glue is clear. Put my hand behind it. But when they are colored, they are going to look superb. And, you know, let's do one more for flavor. Now, ooh, I got a nice long one here. Let's use that. So sometimes these are kind of frayed. So don't be afraid with your low temp glue gun. Just go in there, squirt a bead, and then just drag it along. And then just close it up. Same thing on the other side. Right. Now we've got a nice long stalactite. We'll put that one over here. Now this one has a little drip in the middle. I'm just going to nip it off. And that'll bring it to a nice point. Some wisps. Now if we have a stalactite, we're going to need a stalagmite. Now, I want this one to have a nice base. So I'm going to take one of these ones that has the corner edge. I'm going to roll it up. Just roll it up. Going with the cardboard. And then once that's rolled up, I'm just going to put just a bead of glue right there in the middle of that. And then just kind of hold it in place. So it gets this nice round base. Now, I'll show you another little trick. I'm going to take another one. This one's going to be flat. I'm going to round this one off. And more of an oval. You know, so we are trimming the least amount off of it. Alright. Put a little dab of glue somewhere on there. Doesn't have to be in the middle. And glue this piece to it. And we're going to glue this under that stalagmite. Kind of line them up with each other. Now, I think I'm going to trim this one just a little bit, or what we could do is try to connect them. I don't think we're connecting them. I think I'm going to trim it a little bit. I think it looks pretty good. Once again, you know how we have this little trim piece? Well, let's attach it somewhere. Now, you don't want to put them too close to each other because they will start to merge when you're putting the hot glue together. Or the hot glue covering on them. So, okay, so we're going to keep that like that. We're going to put number 12 in here. And we're going to go ahead and do the outside. It's amazing how these projects go from being somewhat flimsy feeling to being so secure and tough. Alright, on to number 13. Now, we're going to get up in underneath here. And we'll get more underneath there when we get to our second coat. Because these ones do need sort of a second coat on the outside. It's a little important just to kind of hide that seam. It's really what it comes down to as far as these ones go. But yeah, we're just getting some nice texture and just let that sit for a second. And we're going to go back to the inside and see if there are any gaps that we need to fill in as far as the sides go. You want to check up in the corners, up in the edges, and fill in those corrugated sides. Alright. And now we'll do the same thing on the other side. Almost on to number 15. Glue stick number 15 it is. sure we get all those corrugated ends. Alright. Once we have that done, gonna take a look around, see if there's any holes we need to clear up. Alright, and while the outside is still kind of finishing off, we're going to start with our stalactites. Now, we're going to turn it upside down. Start covering these in hot glue. Start a little bit around the base, a little bit around the tip. Kind of, you don't want to load it up. Just want enough that you can sort of tease it with the tip of the hot glue gun. Now I'll flip it back around and let that kind of drip down. And we're going to do a little bit something very similar with the stalagmite. Go around its base. We're going to work our way up. Kind of teasing that hot glue into a point. Now, it doesn't have to be a perfect point, obviously. Normally, I've used toothpicks in the past, but I have used cardboard on occasion. And since this project is going to be producing a lot of cardboard waste, I didn't want to, I wanted to use it up. I didn't want to generate more waste without utilizing it. So this is a good way to utilize some of that otherwise wasted cardboard. Yeah. It's pretty nice. And our owly bear friend can fit in there just fine. I don't want to put him too much because the hot glue is still a little wet. Alright, so that is how I'm starting to make archways now. I think it works. It works just right for my purpose. Now we're going to let that dry a little bit more before I go and do the second coat on the outside and on the stalag everything. Let's see. So, what should we do now? So let me show you an experiment that I've been running. Now, I've had these different styles of flats, these high ground platforms. I've had these long, thin ones. You know, they're basically bridges. They're 1 inch by 4 inches. I've had ones that are 2 inches by 4 inches. And I've had ones that are simply 1 inch by 2 inch. And those were always good. I even have a couple rounds. These work for a few different things. One, you can throw these on the floor of the cave to make some interesting levels. You know, just something like this. Because, you know, cave floors aren't exactly level. So even if it's just something like that, where you're making an interesting cave floor, that's one thing. But there's not enough to really do that in a large room. So I wanted to go bigger. So I started with this one. This one was an experiment. And so far, so good. This one is going to be a large bridge that's meant to connect two sides of like that. So your owlbear can be up here and then jump down and ambush the party. Likewise, there could be a ramp up to the top, and your characters can get up there to get across. Maybe this down here is lava or an acid pool or even just a stream. Something interesting where you have to fight on a bridge over a river, but a natural bridge. So I've only done one side of this so far. I did another experiment with just a plain flat one. This one's all glued. But what I liked about this is its dimensions. I'll show you what I mean. So standard is a 10-foot hallway. So you line these up so that way there's a 10-foot space down the middle, for your little owlbear friend. I wanted to create enough room where I could put several of these over the top to create a second level. Now, the idea is I can take these off to reveal when we're going through the lower level. But I think I want to create enough of these where I can create a high ground so I can actually put... Now, problem is that these aren't all finished yet, so they're not sticking. So I'm going to do something along those lines, where I can have another level of wall, another layer of the dungeon. So that is the idea behind that, and I like these idea of this high ground platforms. And so all this is just a trimmed piece of cardboard trimmed into a mostly rectangular shape, but with the edges kind of frayed a little bit. But I'm trying to keep the sides straight. I'm going to use the big hot glue gun in a second. But so I'm going to do the same thing to this that I'm going to do to this, which is I've already covered one side in hot glue. And I'm going to cover the bottom side. So this can theoretically be used both ways. Flat on one side, and then also as a different kind of arch below with a nice stalagmite or stalactite. Could be either or. Stalactite, stalagmite, whichever way you want it to be. This has kind of come off of this piece of inspiration, which was small. Kind of too small, to be honest. The idea was there, but the playability has not been where I wanted it to be. So I wanted to revisit this piece, but instead of making it sort of triangular, where the tip isn't even really 5 feet across and the other end 2 feet, or 5 feet and 10 feet, to make the whole thing just 10 feet. And I wanted to make sure that this way it's can be some difficult terrain. Fill a little hole there. Alright, so before we get down to that and making these flats, we're going to go ahead and finish off the outside of this guy. So, all we're going to do is we're going to go underneath that little bit of an overhang, And we're just going to drag a little bit of hot glue. And we're just going to drag it down. And we'll just make, once again, just go over with another thin layer of hot glue just to sort of even it out. All we're going to do. And even then, you know, a little bumpy texture is beneficial. Gives it some character. This side looks like we actually don't have to do that much too. Alright. And the stalagmites and stalactites actually, oh, there's only a little bit of a gap right here. Is that the only one? Nope, there's a little side over here that's missing some. Alright, and that's how we do that. And, well, I'm going to do this really quick, and then we'll end it there at the hour mark. Alright, so now that that's dry, we can take that out of the way. And we can move on to these larger pieces. We're going to take our big guy. And now you're going to want something that you can lean this up against. Something like this, for instance. Just so you have a little bit of wiggle room. Because we want the flow to go in one direction. So I'm going to start in the middle, not on the end. And the reason why you want to do it like this, for two reasons. One, that flow is going to make it so you use less hot glue. So I'm not even going to go all the way to the end. I'm just going to wait. Number 16. And so you can do two of these at a time. That's always a beneficial idea. Alright, now I'm just gonna start in the middle. Or, you know, he doesn't have to be right in the middle. It can be a little above the middle. Actually, plug this in a little bit. I like how this glue gun has the option of being able to plug it into the base and to plug it into the actual hot glue gun. I also like that it has an on and off function. So the more I use this, the more I'm starting to like it. But, you know, it's a high temp glue gun. It only has the one temperature. I do need, for my own purposes, a low temp glue gun every now and then. So having both of them comes in handy. Let's see where we're at on this one. This one, for the most part, has gone down all the way. So we're just going to fill in this last little bit. Go up the side. Go up the other side. Oh, I need another glue gun. Another glue stick. That's number 17. No, 18. And we're just gonna do a little bit on the side because, like I said, that's gonna drip. All right. We're gonna let that one go. We're gonna let that one go. And yep, that is starting to stick. All right. So good. We'll leave that one alone. While we're working on those, I'm gonna work on some of these smaller ones. Now, these ones are nice because they do have a nice little rock-esque flatness to them, which is pretty good. But I want something a little thinner sometimes. So I'm going to experiment with doing one of these with chipboard, since I have this leftover chipboard. And we're just going to add a few little divots here and there and turn it into an interesting shape, as I do. I'm going to keep that one side pointy. Now this one, we're not going to worry about the same as we did with the other ones. This one we're just going to glue it right on top. We're just going to smear it around. One way you could do this is put a dab of hot glue on one side to stick it to the cutting board. That'll keep it in place. All right, and now I'm gonna do a round one because that one, this one's more of an egg shape really, but I just thought it'd be fun. So let's do the same thing. I'll show you so just do a little dab of hot glue. It doesn't have to be big. In fact, should be the smaller better. Stick it on there. Let it sit. Oh, the camera's not even pointed at the right spot. There we go. All right. So yeah, stuck there. It's got a little wiggle room, but it's fine. We just need enough to secure it. And then we're just going to go through and we're just going to get a little bit of glue on here. Add a little bit more. Now, I'm not like holding the handle down. I'm just putting little squeezes on it. And then just teasing the hot glue around it. And we'll do the edges. Now, when I do this, I have the tip kind of riding on the edge, so that way it gets both the top and the side. It kind of runs down. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing to this guy. Alright, now let's revisit this one. This one is dry and cooled off. Really, I should say cooled. We're going to do the bottom portion. Alright, it looks like I only have 4 glue sticks, of the big ones anyway. 4 of the big glue sticks left. Alright, we're just going to let that sit. Fill in the corners. Kind of. And we'll add a little bit of texture after. Now we'll do the same thing to this guy. Put a few little holes that will fill in. Little gaps. I'm going to get right about there and I'm going to stop. I'm just going to let that drip down. This one's already forming nice, which is good. Let's see how these guys are doing. Okay, they're getting there. They're getting there. And then while I have it, I'm also going to make another long plank. Now, I was looking at one, and I was thinking of making... There it is. An even longer plank. A 6-inch plank. Something that is thin. Because I figure, oh, if I have these thin guys, I can put them next to each other. You know, make things a little bit bigger, a little off to the side. You know, stack them in a certain way. But I want to try one that's long. So we're going to give this one a little shape to it. Just going to come in, tease the sides a little bit. Really, you don't have to do this too much because most of the texture for the sides is going to come from the hot glue. We're just doing little clips, just little pulls, just taking off hairs. That's it. Just so we can give it a nice little interesting shape, some divots here and there. We're gonna do the same thing we did to these. We're gonna put a little dab in 3 spots. Stick it down. This guy out of the way. All right, let's flip these over. Now, a little bit tore off. It's not that big of a deal. This chipboard has a nice several layers to it. Now, as you see, it's kind of filled in underneath, and that's fine. That's fine. As we go over it, and now we don't need to put another glue spot down because the hot glue is actually going to prevent it from sliding. We'll just do the same thing we did on the other side. Ooh, that was almost a bad mistake. Oh yes, live camera right there. We're going to do the same thing with the other one. Oh, I was wrong. Now I have three left. This one. What is this? This is number 19? Alright, so we'll leave that like that, and we'll get back to the sides. Now, while these are, we'll do this, the bottom of this one, since this one didn't finish dripping all the way. Let's do some touch-ups here. And then we'll do this guy. So just squeeze a little bit out, just kind of tease it around. Alright, flip this one over. It's staying there of its own volition. You know, I told you I was making little mushrooms. I'm telling you, this little thing will make a nice little triple mushroom when we get to it. But we'll see. We'll see about all that stuff. Now I am gonna trim off. Or maybe I won't. No, let's not. Let's see what happens. Let's do an experiment. I like experiments. Right. Same thing to this. Now that the one side's done, that we did to the other smaller ones. Just do a little bit. Tease it around. A little bit, tease it around. Okay. There. We'll do the sides a little bit. Fill these gaps. Alright. Now we're going to do the same to this one as well. So you can see all this is already turning out pretty darn good. So we're just going to go down the sides and fill in that corrugation. Start anywhere you want. I'm just going to put a little bead and just go down. Alright, let that sit down. Come back to that a little bit. Oop, that one is not dry yet. How are these two looking? So we're just going to go over this. Another layer. There's a thin layer. Just fill in those gaps. Same the other side. And then we're just going to go around the outside and kind of melt those edges. So as you've seen from today's show, you see the benefits of both the high temp hot glue gun, and the low temp hot glue gun. So that's kind of one of the main things I wanted to show you, was the how to utilize both to their effectiveness, best effectiveness, something like that. Most effectiveness. There we go. Alright. So we're going to let that one sit. Move on to this one. See how it's going. Give it that last little thin layer on this side. And that's pretty much it. Everything is nice. It's, coated very well. I'm pretty happy with most of this. This one's got some nice texture in it. And yeah, so that's where we stand. Next time, I've also done a few other things, a few other little showcases that I worked on the side from some experiments. Originally, I had these corner pieces, these little half walls. I wasn't too happy with the fact that they're only half walls. So I made one that's a little larger. So this one both doubles as a corner piece for a second floor and a middle wall. So this could be something in the corner of the room that that's an outcropping that has a ladder leading up to it, or a ramp. And speaking of ramps, I've shown you my half ramps before. This is one of the ones that has stalagmites all over it. And I wasn't able to show you because I didn't find it at the time. But the full ramp that I have. Now, the old full ramp that I have, I wasn't too happy with. I tried to make it like stairs with these sections where they could, where the Mini could stop on. But really, it was more of a hindrance than anything else. This one is only 2 inches by 4 inches. And I'm not happy with it. Not happy with this at all. I guess it may serve a purpose for something. Maybe I'll cover the bottom and I can use it as a corner half wall this way, because it is 2 inches, almost 2 inches high. That might be a good use for it. But so I wanted to revisit it, and what it came down to was a much longer ramp. So here we go. Here's the full-size ramp. It goes. It's nice and level, that the Mini can sit on it or stand on it and not slide down. And it has some nice features on it. Like, instead of on this one where I limited play space by putting the stalagmites on the actual walkway, this one, although I did put a couple on there, they're small and right off to the side, and these other rather large ones are off on the outskirts of it, off the playing field. And I like this one a lot better. It doesn't go up to the top of the wall. What it does is it goes up 3/4 of the way. A good stepping point, where you could also take one of these guys and put it there and make a little boulder bridge in between, or even do this guy and extend the ramp even further over over a hole or a river or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. Next episode, we will get into painting and how we get this nice cavern look to these walls. It's pretty simple, but we'll go through that. And I will see you all next time. See you next week on the Lycan DM's workshop. Now, Thursday night at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is the Bones and Barbarians campaign. Season 2, episode 6, 7? Not entirely sure. I'm losing track. I have a lot going on. But yeah, come check us out for that. We are delving into a realm of fire and gold. The Afriti has bid us welcome. Now, with that out of the way, I hope to see you all soon. And you have fun, but stay safe. All right. Bye, guys.